Well, lots to unpack there. Let's go right into it. We're joined by Africa security and policy analyst Abdullahi Boru Halakhe. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, we heard some of the causes there, the root causes and the trigger, the jailing of Jacob Zuma. Are you surprised, though, by how quickly this escalated and the scale of all of it?
I think the only people who are surprised are people who haven't followed South Africa since the end of apartheid, almost 30 years ago now. This is something that has been brewing for some time. COVID has made it very difficult now, obviously, but Jacob Zuma's arrest was just the trigger that it needed for these people to come onto the streets. You know, we can have the debates on whether their methods are good, valid, or justified, but I think the starting point is, has the South African government under the ANC that came into power in 1994 has delivered? It is very telling, however, that Jacob Zuma, who became the face of the corruption within the ANC, when he was the vice president, Thabo Mbeki fired him in 2005 for taking money from a French military contractor. But when he came into power, Jacob Zuma took the same corruption to the next level. That Jacob Zuma, under which the country for 9 years almost considered like almost a lost decade, now is becoming the trigger for South Africans to go after, to go and riot because of socioeconomic inequality in itself is telling.
It's interesting. We talked about the effects that COVID has had on countries around the world and the economic conditions in there, but how is it uniquely contributing to what we're seeing in South Africa?
It is uniquely contributing in the sense that South Africa has got one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. And some of this precedes COVID, but COVID made it very difficult. And the monthly stipend that the government of South Africa has been giving of $24 has come to an end. And people, I mean, when you have an unemployment numbers of over 30%, and if you add, you know, the number of people who are not actively seeking unemployment, that number climbs into 40. In a country of 60 million, that is a huge number of people who do not have an employment. And so therefore, people who are on the streets, who are rioting, who at the top of the hour, your reporter explained vaccines are being looted. They're the ones who are more affected by COVID and the underlying economic reality, and they are the ones who are now going to bear the brunt, because some of the jobs that, you know, are now gone are the jobs and places that they could have worked. You know, vaccines that some of them could have obtained from the pharmacies that have been looted, those are the vaccines that could have been helped in taming COVID-19. So it makes for a very complex and complicated, if not toxic, situation.
Ramaphosa has called on the military to help quell the neighborhoods where there's violence and looting. Do you think that's going to be effective?
I think Ramaphosa is reading this wrongly again. Just like Jacob Zuma, who is now the face of corruption and, you know, malfeasance within the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa's rise can be a function of, you know, the black economic empowerment that was meant post-apartheid to really bring up, you know, a certain cadre of Africans in South Africa to be able to achieve certain level of economic empowerment. Now that he was part of that elite that obtained, you know, their wealth, he was independently wealthy, that his wealth was a function of that. And he's the one now who is calling the police on the poor South Africans in order to stabilize this. And you've got to ask, for who? I mean, if for 1 second we pause Roee and say that, you know, military is the solution to this, I think again it just shows the distance between the reality of the common South African and the reality of their political elite. This is not going to solve the problem. If anything, it will make it worse.
Are these businesses going to be able to build back, and if so, how quickly?
They will be able to build back, but it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be long. If the government doesn't come in and help in providing some of the support, you know, tax incentive, it will be very difficult. And that will have an impact on the broader South African economy, and then, you know, the average South African. It is a vicious cycle. There are no easy answers, but at the very minimum, we need to agree on the root causes and also not employing tactics that might make the situation worse, like using the military.
deeply unsettling developments there in South Africa. Abdullahi Boru Halakhe, thank you so much for joining us.